Talk. This is Green Long, your host. Our new podcast called Girl Talk is focusing on relationships that are close to you, whether they're at home, in your romantic life, or at work, like your coworkers. Because they're so close to you, we tend to spend more time with them and we share our special events like our milestones, our birthdays, holidays. So that's the great stuff about having these close relationships with them. On the flip side, if it's you spend more time with them, you're also going to have more opportunities for conflicts and arguments, right? That's just a given. And everyone knows why, because we're just built differently. So you spend more time with these partners, your boyfriend, your coworkers. Yeah. Have you noticed things come up? Yeah. Anyways, and that's unfortunate because that person that you adore, that you love, has now become your worst enemy. And now the relationship is no longer a dream one, it's a nightmare. So every episode, I will focus on specific types of relationships and give you 3 amazing tips to handle those conflicts that can occur within. Now you're probably thinking, oh, okay, come on, Kareen. I read enough books. I hear enough podcasts already. I'm good. And I think that's awesome that if you are trying to make yourself better by reading articles and listening to other podcasts to help this kind of problem, great. It doesn't hurt to hear another one because I think that my podcast gives you something completely different perspective. When you read something, you're reading, but then when you're upset, like right now, you're upset, you're pissed off, you forget most of what you read. I mean, I've read most books already, like Men from Mars, Women from Venus, those kind of books. And honestly, I have forgotten the crux of those books. Like what was the main theme? What was the takeaway messages? Because there was too much information. In this podcast, I will give you 3 very easy tips to remember so that when you're in the heat of the moment, when you are enraged and you're in the middle of a brawl, you'll know what to do to move forward, to get past it. That's the goal. This is all based on my time as being a clinical manager and now my own boss of my own company. So I deal a lot with human relationships. I have a lot of co-workers. I dealt with many boyfriends and I'm on my 2nd marriage. So, I have my fair share of relationships. How about that? We're going to go and dive right into today's topic. And this relationship that I want to focus on today is for the married couple. So if you're married, all right, listen to this podcast. If you're married and is having a lot of problems, you're even thinking about the D word, divorce, you need to listen for the entire duration of this podcast because this one is for you. Marriage, as you know, is very difficult because you have a lifelong partner. You have to make sacrifices, whether you like it or not, for the sake of the family. It's not easy to walk away. When you're dating, it's easy to walk away. When you have a coworker, it's easy to clock out and go home, right? But when you're married, I mean, that is your home. That is your family. That is the father of your children or mother of your children. So it's not as easy to walk out the door and go, you know what? Forget y'all. I'm out of here. I know you want to do that. I know you want to just probably inflict harm or punch out his lights. I'm sure that is happening right now because you're so upset. And I don't even know why you're upset, but I can tell you right now that if you're contemplating divorce or separation, it's because whatever happened in your relationship was really bad. You were fighting either about money, maybe the partner had an affair, broke your trust, hurt you in that way, or became an addict and you cannot deal with those behaviors. Okay. So these problems that are occurring in your marriage is pretty severe, very serious. For those of you who are listening and feel like, well, my partner's not doing any of those things. I just don't like them very much. I'm very frustrated with them. I feel like they're being naggy and annoying to me. Okay, so for those they're married couples who just get a little pissed off with the other partner for those little minute details of annoyances, and maybe they're just kind of getting on your skin the last few days. All right. If you're having a lot of fights, things that are coming up in your marriage, you don't necessarily have to divorce. Okay. You don't have to. You have to kind of get down to the crux of that problem. Usually, when people get on each other's nerves, it's something else. It's not you that they don't like. It's maybe they're stressed at work. Maybe they had a fight with their parents, and it's just basically, what's the word? They are unloading off of you, right? So that's not fair, but it happens. Okay. If you feel that your partner and you are just kind of getting at each other's nerves for every day or most of the week, it's time to consider my first step. Consider physical separation. Physical separation does not involve the government. The state of California does not need to know about it. It's just basically you moving it or having the partner move out into a different residence, like their parents' house, their friend's house, or even a long-term motel. Basically, you need to give each other a lot of space. Physical separation is ideal for any married couple that has small little problems like the one I just mentioned, where you're just kind of annoyed with each other. It's also very good for people with very serious problems. So let's suppose your partner did cheat on you. Yeah, you need to physically separate. And here's the reason why. The physical separation is the easiest thing that a couple can do to get a break from the relationship. It's very hard to act like a husband and wife when you're pissed as hell. Your kids can tell, your coworkers will know. You can't hide it. Even though you think you're pretty strong at work and at home, yeah, people can tell. You're just not the same self. You're not as fun anymore. You're sarcastic. You look irritable. You seem a bit irritable. Those are signs that you need to physically separate from your partner because that partner's annoying you. And you're thinking to yourself, well, Kareem, that's obvious. It's obvious. It's easy to say it out loud. It's very hard to do, especially when you do it in some cultures like Asians. If you say the word separate, OMG, okay? Your parents will have a cow. Your friends will kind of like, pretty bad, huh? Gotta separate there. There's a lot of negative stigma with physical separation, and that's so unfortunate. Physical separation is the easiest thing you can do, and it's good for your mental health. So I suggest that you both agree, you and your partner agree, honey, we've been kind of at each other's throats past couple of weeks now. It's not good for the kids, not good for me or you. Perhaps you should move out for a little bit, or maybe move into the guest house for a little bit. If you have financial means to move into a motel for a couple weeks, do it. Do it. I think that you will appreciate the break, a chance for you to go to work, come home, not having to worry about the other person, but think about yourself. Take care of yourself, make yourself a nice dinner for you and your kids, go work out, maybe reconnect with your friends, go, to a nice restaurant or dessert place, have some boba. You can do that. That gives you a break from all of the madness and frustration that you are having with your partner. And vice versa, he or she is doing the same thing too. They have a break away from you, and they can go to work and have a little downtime for themselves after work. That is why it's so amazing. And when you're more calm, when you're more in your own element, when you're have your brain turn on properly, screwed on properly, you can make better decisions. So for those married couples who are fighting quite a bit, you need to every day try to find ways to, I've got a problem with my partner. Let's see what I can do to compromise. What can I do to make it better? That's what you both should be doing. It should be a proactive approach versus reactive. You should both Try to find a solution that you both can agree with. And if you find something that is reasonable to you, then present it to the person. Otherwise, there's no reason to talk to that person. Just say, hey, honey, I calling. Can we talk about this problem and deal with it? I have an example, and you will hear it and you'll think, oh my God, did that really happen? Yes, it did. One of my staff pharmacist. I won't say her name out loud because I don't want to embarrass her, but she wanted to separate. She wanted to leave her husband after 5 years of marriage. Now, she's Asian, he's Asian, and for the most part, Asian guys aren't really romantic. They've always been pretty much, cool guys, stoic. They're not very expressive people. That's just a general rule, okay? So she married an Asian man who wasn't romantic. I mean, he's not a romantic prince. He's just not. And she's known that for years. For some reason, she came up to me. She knew I was divorced. And she said, I want to leave my husband. like it was, I'm going to go work out. Like, same tone, same casualness. And I looked at her like, Stacy, are you kidding me? Why would you say that? What happened? Did he hurt you? Is he doing drugs? What did he do that's so awful that you have to say, I'm leaving you? Do you know what she said to me? I come home from work and I drive to my house. I park in the driveway every night at 8:00 and it's dark outside. He does not turn on the driveway lights for me. And I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm waiting for her to say, oh, and then he beat me up. No. He just didn't turn on the lights, even though he should have known better. Now, I'm a very honest person. I look at her and I said, you are so silly. You're so silly. A man that does not get up from his couch to turn on a light at 8:00 for you doesn't mean he doesn't love you. He does not deserve you to walk out on him for that one little incident. It bothered me because she was going to do it. She didn't talk to anyone. She didn't have a lot of girlfriends. And she thought that leaving her husband was a motion to get him to realize what he needs to be doing. And in fact, she never told him that she wanted this. It's honestly very stupid. And I even told her, you can easily install motion detector lights. You don't have to have your man walk up every night at 8:00 to turn the lights for you. Anyway, so they're still together. I did talk her out of it because I didn't want her to say, honey, I'm leaving you for this. So for silly, stupid, minute details, don't separate, and if you are, you really got to see a counselor or talk to your girlfriends that will tell you if that is a legitimate reason for leaving. And I will tell you, girlfriends, as a rule, we do tell each other, hey, that's not cool. You shouldn't be doing that. So she told me and I told her, yeah. But there are some people out there who just think that leaving a husband is pretty easy. Yeah, no problem. No, it's not. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So if I can prevent you guys from making those kind of mistakes, I did a good job today. So that's what I want to happen, is to help you guys out from an awful mistake. Okay. All right. So moving on. Okay. So let's suppose you are married and you have a very serious problem that's beyond the driveway lights. Okay. Then you need to see a counselor. And that's tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to meet with a marriage counselor. And I don't mean you, I mean you and your partner. You got to do it. Okay. Because the marriage counselor provides tips and strategies to deal with each other. It's no sense in one person going and not the other. So both people have to go. What's unfortunate about counseling and therapy is that there's a lot of negative stigma with it as well. It's like people hear the word, oh, you're seeing a therapist? OMG, your marriage is on the rocks. You got it real bad. That's not true. Actually, counseling should be implemented in every marriage at the beginning of their problems. It's really better for the couple to learn how to deal with each other with a guidance of a counselor or a therapist. I highly recommend it. because you don't know, we generally don't know how to treat each other in marriage. We watch a lot of shows and TV that kind of talk about it, but that's fake TV. That's not real. They don't tell you how it's really supposed to be. You watch your own parents and they don't even know, like my parents are always fighting, as probably your parents are always fighting, but they're still together, but they're always at war with each other. Is that the best way to go? Is that good for your kids to see? No, it's not. So think about seeking the advice of a marriage counselor at the beginning. So as he's packing up his bags to live in a motel for 2 weeks, you guys are going to agree to see a counselor together. For those of you who don't know what counseling's about, you realize that counseling, first of all, is usually covered by insurance, or at least part of it. That's one. Number two, it's done every week as you need it. So it's not, if it's more severe, like you have really bad problems, it's like almost twice a week or 3 times a week. It's really up to the couple to go as often as they like to. You'll notice there is less fights because you're now allowed to fight at home. If there is a problem that arises, they have a rule. You cannot talk about it at home, but you can bring the topic up at the next session. And the counselor will tell you what should have happened, why you bring it up, what is your problem, and that's how it works. So basically, you're no longer fighting. You're fighting through the counselor. Isn't that amazing? I have an excellent example of how this worked. My friend was seeing a counselor with her husband because she had an affair. And they were doing pretty good seeing a counselor. And then one day, the partner brought it up and made a comment about it. And it was not a nice comment. It was very snide, sarcastic, totally random. And he became very despondent for the rest of the day. She was told not to say anything. She did text the counselor like, oh, this came up. What should I do? The counselor said, you know what? Just write down your diary. We'll talk about it next session, which was like the next 3 days. And that's what it did. So she stayed mute. She just nodded, continued on her day, did not address that comment or that behavior. Fast forward 3 days, they met at the counselor and the counselor goes, so I heard that you brought it up, this affair. Why did you bring it up? And so now it became more of a conversation between the partner and her while my friend was watching and listening. And my friend understood him better. So she's watching this go down in a very professional exchange. And what happened was he saw the other guy and it just brought back a flood of memories of hurt. And that's why he brought it up. So the counselor told the partner how to deal with that versus saying it out loud to hurt her. See, totally works. That was probably the best hour that they are doing every week because they're doing it together and then no one's fighting. No one's like saying bad words or being hurtful. Eventually they move back in with each other and they're still together. So congratulations. I'm very happy that they got past it. And that was with the help of the counselor. Eventually they no longer need the counseling services. They tapered off to every 2 weeks, every month, and then soon none at all. Great. So marriage counselor, that's tip number 2 for very serious problems that are beyond the scope of this podcast, like having marital affairs or being an addict or, causing harm to you, like spousal abuse. Those are very serious criminal behaviors. So I would say definitely see a counselor for those issues. All right. So we have covered tip 1, which is to physically separate temporarily. Okay. Not forever, just a temporary 2 to 2 months time away from each other. That's pretty much all you need. If you need more time than that, there's something serious going on there. Tip number 2, see a marriage counselor at the beginning of that separation. If it's a problem that is kind of nagging at you, like not a serious one, then you could probably talk about on your friends or seek help from other married couples. They can give you some guidance and tell you, oh, that wasn't cool, but I don't think you should leave the guy, right? So that's what girl talk is about, is to kind of validate what you think or to tell you what you think and tell you if it's wrong, you know. Tip number 3. So now we're getting to the last one. Now, what could I possibly say that'll blow your mind? The last one is simple, very super easy. In the entire time that you're pissed and you're packing up, he's packing up his stuff and you're going to see a counselor, never, never say the D word. Don't say divorce. Don't bring it up even as like an option or in your language. Just don't. I learned the hard way. When the other partner hears the word divorce, it changes the landscape. It changes the perspective. It's like, you're no longer my wife. You're just a girl who's trying to find a way out. And you're ready to push that button to turn your key in and leave in a heartbeat. The partner's going to feel like what? Lost, confused, hurt. He's not even thinking about it, but you already put it out there on the table. Well, honey, let's get divorced. Oh my God. Can you imagine if you heard that? Honey, let's get divorced. Think about that. When we get married, we do not get married thinking, it's all right if it doesn't work out, I'll just get divorced. We're not like that. And if you are, you really shouldn't get married. You really shouldn't be. Divorce is not something, it's not an option that we first go to whenever something bad happens. Okay. Even if it's like really serious, like someone had an affair or someone, is an addict, it doesn't necessarily mean you divorce them. Okay. Remember the vows, right? To have and to hold, for richer, for poor, sickness and health, death do part. Yeah. That's error by law because it's trying to drive home the point that you're supposed to be with the person no matter what, for better or for worse. You're supposed to. That's what marriage is about. If you don't want to be with your man because he's poor, marriage is not for you. If you don't be with your man because he's sick, marriage is not for you. All right. Marriage is not like looking through a rose-colored lens. It's not always happy, birds singing, birds chirping. It's not like that. There's always going to be ups and downs. And sometimes down can be pretty bad. Sometimes you are poor. Sometimes he is really sick. And that makes you a caretaker. You may not like it. If you don't like it and you don't want to be a caretaker, then yeah, maybe you shouldn't get married. Maybe you should not get married. Truth. All right. So back to point number 3. Tip number 3, don't say the divorce word. I'll give you an example, and this is a personal one. So I'm actually put my heart out there for y'all to hear. In my first marriage, we were fighting quite a bit, like every day. I mean, I kid you not, even through holidays. Okay. Just every day, didn't take a break. And it was more or less like arguing about little stuff like the dinner I made or how I clothe my child or, how I'm too fat or too skinny or how I work too hard and neglected the family. It seems like it was always one way. Like I'm always the one that's causing a problem. And I got to a point where, you know what? I can't live like this every day for the past year. We've been fighting and we don't say, I'm sorry. He just goes to sleep. Like that's the end of a conversation. But the whole day, he's always mad at me. I'm not a mad person. I come home pretty happy. So I don't think it was me, but who knows? But anyways, I was pretty frustrated. And I remember it was a Sunday afternoon and he was taking our son out for a walk, came home and he's like, oh, okay. So what do you want for lunch? And I said, oh, I'm not really hungry. You can have lunch though. And I said, I'm thinking we've been fighting a lot lately. And he goes, yeah, I know. Yeah. Do you think we should get divorced? Oh. If I can go back time and change what I did, I would delete that sentence. That was my bad. I was 25. I was young and stupid. Okay. My head was not screwed on right. I was so flustered with the fights, them little stupid dinner fights we've been having and how I raise my child. It's so ridiculous. Sometimes you just want to have a nice dinner, right? Sometimes you just have a nice night at home. What I do that was so awful that you always have to tell me that I'm this and do that. And even if I spent money, I was being a squanderer, I don't know, getting your hair cut is not scorning money, buying myself a new pair of shoes, not scorning money. I was actually very pragmatic, but regardless, I was upset, very frustrated. And instead of talking to my girlfriends, none of my girlfriends were married at the time, so they didn't understand what I was going through. They don't have any idea. So I did not seek counseling because I didn't know any better. I didn't seek counseling. I simply went straight to the D word, and I saw his expression go from a kind of smile to a stern, flat line lip. Like, it just changed his mood. And then he said, "Fine, that's what you want to do. Go ahead. Get yourself a lawyer. Do it." And it was almost like we're playing poker now, like calling my bluff, right? And I was like, "Oh, okay. Uh, you make it sound so easy, but this is what guys do. They get defensive." And so he's not going to cry my shoulders or beg on his knees to ask me to come back. He's not. That's not his type. Anyways, but I shouldn't have done that. I should not have done that. We eventually did get divorced, but the entire journey from that day till the day of divorce was an awful one. Awful. On several occasions, we tried to reconcile, didn't work. In the end, we did go to counseling and the counselor was great because they listened to our stories. They tried to tell us what we can do to kind of work towards each other. But after 8 sessions, and this is part where counselors are great, if they feel this marriage is not going to work, they will tell you that. I remember our counselor, we were both going, and we weren't really making a lot of headway. Like, we were talking, which is good. We weren't fighting as much. We were talking, we were co-parenting, we were learning the rules, like no conflicts, no fights, no bad mouthing each other, that kind of stuff. Okay. So that's good. Counselors kind of remind you those things. And we saw him every week. On the 8th session, at the end, he pulls me aside, the therapist. He says, Kareen, I don't think this is going to work. He said, "Why?" Like, I kind of thought counselors are supposed to make all marriages work. All right, I know another stupid thing I thought, right? That's not true. Counselors are not miracle workers. They cannot fix every marriage. And this was a marriage they cannot fix. And I remember what he said to me. He says, "You can take the boy out of that country, but you can't take the country out of that boy." Whoa. I won't tell you which country, but my point is that, he'll always be that way because of the way he was raised. It's who he is. And no matter how many sessions we go, you cannot change him from that to your ideal husband. No way. No way. Same with me. Even though my parents are from China, I'm so Americanized, there's no way any Chinese boy will find me attractive because I'm too Americanized. But you can't change me. This is how I am. And so that's what he narrowed it down to, was you guys are so different. So it was kind of like his way of saying it's not going to work. You can try to get together, but it won't work in the end. All right. So that's why counselors are awesome, because they can help at least narrow down the field for you, kind of make it clear. Should you work together? And if you're wrong, they'll tell you you're wrong. You're being so overly sensitive, or you misinterpret what he's saying. Yeah. So if my friend Stacy had gone to counselor, she would probably get her earful because what she was doing was being silly. So that's what I was doing for her. I was telling her she was being silly. This counselors will do that too. So it's good. But if it's a legitimate reason to separate, they'll tell you, yeah, you guys should separate and go forward with the divorce because this is never going to work out. Awesome. All right. So we're going to wrap up this session. We're going to go back and sum up the 3 tips. Consider physical separation temporarily. Make sure it's mutually agreed upon that you separate, live in different residences for just 2 to 2 months. Okay. 2 weeks or 2 months, right? Not too long. Number 2, during that physical separation, go ahead and seek advice of a marriage counselor. That means you and you, both people, go see that marriage counselor every week or as often as you need it. It's not like a dental appointment where you have to go every month or every 6 months. It's not like that. It's whenever you need it, and you'll love it. Number 3, don't use the D word. Don't say divorce. Don't put it on the table. You can think it, but don't say it. Okay, keep it to yourself. All right. That's it. That's a wrap. You'll find the links in the show notes. You'll find ways to get a hold of me if you have questions or comments. If you need help getting referral to a good marriage counselor, I can help you in that direction. But you have to get past the negative stigma. These are great tools. Use them. Use them. And if people don't like it, that's it. It's okay. Screw them. Okay, it's about you and your marriage. Do what you need to do to make it work. That's a wrap.